Selamat evening teman-teman semua. Kita melanjutkan game yang bertajuk The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. Ini game udah gue mainin yang part 1-nya, ini lanjut ke part 2, menemukan ending-ending lainnya. Ini adalah game yang banyak sekali endingnya yang tidak jelas. Lanjut aja. Sekarang jam berapa sih tuh? 4:37. Tinggal 8 dah ya. Before we get started, can I just say something? They just leave the clock set at 12 and call it a day. Okay. But you're actually taking the time to set the clock, and I appreciate that. That's how I know that you are care about this experience. You're paying attention. I don't even have any way of knowing if the times you're setting are correct. Aku nggak tahu kamu tuh beneran nggak sih nyeting waktunya. Aku kasih tahu kamu sesuatu. Aku membuat kamu penawaran apa? Sejak kamu mainnya sangat kooperatif, next time, just set the clock to your favorite time. Oh, boleh disetting waktunya sesuai waktu yang gua suka. Oke. You've earned it. Oh, jadi kan dibolehin setting waktunya sesuai yang kita mau. Astaga. I'll let you get back to the video game now. Oke. Narasi atau narator yang aneh ya. Cuman ya udahlah.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Ini nih.
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427.
Dia adalah karyawan yang ada di
427's job was simple.
Ruangan
He
427.
sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard.
Dia
Orders
pencet
came to him
tombol
through
di
a monitor
keyboard.
on his desk.
Kerjanya gitu
What
doang.
buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened. This complete isolation.
Okay.
Something was very clearly wrong.
Masih sama ya narasinya.
Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Oke. Bisa pakai ini stick ternyata.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply... Oh, please. Are you really just doing this for the achievement? Click a door 5 times. Is that all that you think an achievement is worth? No. I can't just give these merits away for such little effort. A measly 5 clicks. Now suppose you were to click the door 20 times. I would say that's the kind of effort that warrants recognition.
Oke. Kosong. Apa nih? New content.
Oh, good. You noticed my sign. Yes, I have something very exciting to show you.
Apa tuh? Apa nih? New content.
You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on the Stanley Parable and about how roundly disappointing this ultra deluxe version has turned out to be. The original Stanley Parable was a landmark, and any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever the Stanley Parable 2.
Wow, Stanley Parable 2. Agak baru kayaknya, gue belum lihat di Steam.
Yes, you see, isn't this far superior to a measly re-release with a few minor additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for.
Okay. Investor Showcase apa nih?
Calling it the Stanley Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2, now that's an artistic statement right there. It's future-oriented. It screams progress and innovation and long-term franchising potential.
Apa nih? Apa tuh tulisnya? Photos of apa sih? Ini apa? Sama. Kebuka tuh. They are back, 2 doors. Okay. New content is out. New content part 2 is in. Apa tuh? Old plus busted. New hotness. Cool. Red section of the chart. Boring section of the chart. Ini apa? More TSP. Apa tuh TSP? Will. Sequential mindshare. Paradigm shift. Synergy. Break and mortar. Approach, envelope, client-centric marketing, the color red, leverage, holistic value. Ini kayak bener-bener kantor aja gitu ya, ngomongin marketing. Oke. Lah, ini PowerPoint. Google Slide anjir. Oh, ini laptopnya. Kok gini banget, lucu banget. Oh, ini kebuka tuh. Oh, ini apa nih? 2. Loh, ada 2 Stanley-nya.
Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. It'll all work itself out. Game development is much more of a fuzzy magic than anything scientific or logical.
Pitch design number 2, chat. Meeting plan. Nggak bisa dibuka. Sequels are good. Portal 2. Aja dikasih. Sequels are good. Dikasih lihat aja game-game yang ada sequelnya. Batman, Divinity, Doom 2, Aladdin, Dark Souls, Portal. Bocah. Aduh, kok gue nguap-nguap mulu ya. Apa nih? This way to the show floor. Oke. Wih, apa nih? New content pada nonton ya. New features. Apa new featuresnya apa? Ini kayak lagi gala premier gitu dah. Apa tuh? Expo Hall tuh. Widih, gila. Gila. Niat banget.
Here we are. Go on, try out some of the new features.
Apa new features? Wih, ada merchandise dong. Asik, ada merchandise. The end is never the end, never the end, never the end. Apa nih? Reassurance bucket. Noi. Ada Jerman tuh, bahasa Jerman. Ada bahasa yang lainnya juga. Di konten. Seru juga. The button that says the name of the player that is playing the game. Oke. Coba ini apa? Hear your name in the game. Oh, gue bisa dengar suara nama gue kan di sini.
For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want? And of course, the first and most obvious answer is that they want to be individually recognized and validated as people. So with that in mind, my first addition to the game is this button which speaks the name of the person playing
Just right.
the game. Isn't that wonderful?
Oke, katanya bisa dengar nama gue nih kalau dipencet. Button apa? Tombol yang ngomong nama playernya. Coba.
Jim. Sorry, I should have clarified. Right now,
Huh?
the button
Jim?
only says the name Jim. But of course, in the final game, this button will say your name, whatever name that is. Here, let's have you role-play as Jim to really simulate the full experience of this feature. Just play along. I promise you'll love it. Okay, here we go. Let's take a deep breath, clear your mind, forget whoever you are, and simply become a person named Jim. I want you to imagine yourself living as Jim, sleeping and waking as Jim, falling in love and being heartbroken as Jim, seizing all of the world's possibilities as Jim, and as Jim watching your dreams crumble into dust.
What?
Do you feel it deeply? Are you really, truly Jim right now? If so, then please step forward and press the button. Jim. Yes, you see? What a thrill, what a rush. That was you. The button described you. Do it again.
Do it again. Jim.
Oh, it hits even harder the second time. If this were the only new feature in the Stanley Parable 2, it would still be worth the money. Let's take a break from the Jim button. I'm too emotionally drained from all of this personal validation.
Oh, udah.
Whoa there, cowboy. Sometimes a person can be too much Jim.
Too much Jim.
I'm putting the Jim button away. Otherwise, soon you'll start to lose all sense of who you actually are.
Dihilangin buttonnya, astaga. Halo Bang, halo Febrian, nih gue lagi main game aneh nih. That's yours. Aneh banget. Tapi vibes-nya kayak game horror ya? Apa nih? Place no screenshot.
That would actually save me the work of finishing this feature.
Coba gue screenshot. Nah, gue screenshot loh. The Whole New Office. Oh, ini nih teaser game sequelnya nih. Apaan nih, kok tiba-tiba 11.9. New update ray trace, anjay. Anjay, jadi lebih realistis ya. New ideas, okay. Consistent quality with just the right amount of change. Apa nih? The baby is all grown up. The button that says the name, okay. Jump circle, infinite hole. Apa tuh infinite hole? Please no screenshot, okay.
Okay, I'll be honest, I haven't yet decided on this one. I think that in the new version, the office could use a bit of decoration, like balloons. But I'm undecided on get well someday and happy 12th birthday. Which would you go with?
Kira-kira gue kalau jadi Stanley milih yang mana ya? Game apa ini? Nggak tahu nih, game banyak ending, game pokoknya play along aja lah. Kita jadi karyawan namanya Stanley gitu. Happy 12th birthday, Stephanie. Get well someday.
You know, sometimes when you solicit another person's opinion, it makes you realize that you knew which one you actually really wanted all along.
Lah?
Happy 12th birthday, step-niece, it is.
Gue milih yang ini, malah keluar yang itu. Kocak. Nggak jelas. Nggak jelas gue milih yang putih.
Maybe I should have gone with... No, I've made my decision, we're moving on.
We're moving on. Udah serah lu lah, bodo amat. Naratornya nggak jelas di sini, Febrian. Di sini ada gamenya ada naratornya, tapi naratornya tolol. Ya udahlah. Apalagi nih dua. Jump circle. Oh, gue bisa loncat di sini.
You know what? Let's bring the jump circle back for Stanley Parable 2 as well. It's oh wait. You already spent all your jumps the first time we saw the jump circle. Oh well. I suppose it can just be a nice decorative piece then.
Ya, nggak bisa dipakai dong. Ya. Padahal kita bisa loncat nih di lingkaran ini. Nih game nggak bisa loncat, cuma bisa nunduk doang. Apa nih collectibles? Apa nih? You are here. Okay. Lower level. Okay. Free achievement. Q di mana free achievement? Oh, ini di sini nih. Free new plus easy achievement. Apa nih? Get it here. Dapat achievement gratis kah di sini gua? STANLEY Parable 2. Pull the lever, achieve your achievement, no more steps. Just forget yours now.
Now here's something special. You remember that broken test achievement that got left in the game on accident? Well, I'm developing a technology to simply give you the achievement. Yes, you see, you'll come to this lever, and when you pull it, the achievement will be given to you. It's as simple as that.
Masa sih?
Okay, perhaps I should have clarified. This is technology that will exist. Right now, the achievement is still fully broken. I'm not a wizard, Stanley, but I guarantee it will be fixed in the sequel to at last satisfy the hordes of ravenous fans all over the world who have been uproariously demanding this feature. Gamers, we hear you, and I promise it will happen.
Katanya broken, belum dibenerin anjir achievementnya, cok. Ini apa lagi? Ini tuh vibes-nya kayak horor ya?
What other exhibits haven't we seen yet?
Tapi bukan horor, gimana sih? Bingung gue juga. Coba kalau yang loophole. Bohong anjir, iya makanya. Infinite Hall di mana deh Infinite Hall? Ini kah Infinite Hall yang atas? Itu si Stanley-nya itu gede banget. I can't believe it's that simple. Can you find them? Can you find them? Can you find them? Wih, apaan nih?
Collectibles. Now it's a real video game. In the Stanley Parable 2, you'll run around gathering up these miniature Stanley figurines. And what's truly innovative is that there will be no reward for collecting all of them. I don't want to stifle the intrinsic joy of watching a number go up. You simply collect all of them, and then you move the hell on with your unremarkable life.
Aneh banget. Apaan ini bro? Agak nyampe-nyampe gua. Ini itu apaan? Orang-orang semua kan pada ngambil. Lah 1/6. Oh, nanti bakalan ada kayak gini. Collect them all. Loh? Udah habis kah? Udah habis.
God, it really is the worst when you collect everything in a video game and then they give you a big fancy reward for it. Absolutely
tragic. Apa nih Infinite Hall nih bro? It won't end. Apa nih Infinite Hall? Pengen ditabok naratornya ini makanya. Lu nonton deh yang pertama, yang part satunya gue mainin nih, anjir kayak jelas banget sumpah. Ini apa lagi nih? Kok terang banget itu? Hall entrance infinity. Buset, ini apaan anjir? It just keep going. Ini apa? Infinite Hall chart, masuk ke dalam set. All more infinity, falling more. Buset.
Stanley, here's an idea that I'm truly fond of. It's never been done before in a video game. This is in fact a hole that you can fall down forever. That's right. Infinite fall.
Infinite falling banget.
Fall until the end of time, if you like. A stunning leap forward for video games as a medium.
Itu tadi apaan itu ditutup gitu deh. Atapnya ya. Nyoba nggak ya? Cobain aja deh ya. Wow, gila.
You see, isn't it wonderful?
Ih, serem anjir. Game horor ini bang, nggak tahu.
Now then, since you've gotten to see the
Infinite Hall ini aja.
You can press the teleport button to pop back up to the top, and we can continue onward.
To the surface.
Now, I don't mean to be a bummer, but I do recommend you use the teleport button to go back to the top.
Coba kalau kita nggak pencet apa ya?
Sooner rather than later spectrum of things.
Coba kalau kita nggak pencet apa ya? Kita jatuhnya kemana nih? Apa emang nggak ada dasarnya?
Okay, Stanley, I don't know quite how to say this tactfully, but it's possible that I slightly exaggerated the infinite nature of the hole. Is it a very, very deep hole? To be certain it is. It's an extreme.
Oh, gila looping coy.
Say that it isn't an astonishingly deep hole. It is. Is it infinite? Well, that sort of depends on your definition of infinity. From one perspective, the infinite is merely philosophical in nature. It's more of a...
Wah!
Okay, well, good for you. You found the bottom of the hole. You found me out, Stanley. I'm a liar and a cheat, and you're so clever. Look, I think the issue here is just that you're unusually fascinated by falling. What normal person actually wants to fall infinitely?
Yeah, katanya Infinite Hall bohong.
Anyone would actually need. Don't you put this on me? Maybe
sampai ke all bang.
Look, things got a little heated there. I think we both said some things we didn't mean. Why don't we just put all this behind us and agree to just call the whole mostly
infinite?
If that works for you, then go ahead and press the teleport button to warp up to the top of the hole and we can move on. I'll just be up here when you're ready.
Enggak. Coba kalau gua nggak klik ininya apa ya? Kalau gua nggak klik surface, dia ngomong apa ya? Dia ngomong apa ya kalau gua nggak klik? Kocak nih, dia bilang ini lubangnya infinity ya, anjir nggak ada batasnya. Taunya ada di bawahnya anjir. Ya, mau tipu-tipu gua. Ini udah kan nggak ada narasi lagi sama sekali. Nggak ada narasi sama sekali nih.
Great. Now, I'm very excited
Udahlah.
to show you even more of my ideas for the sequel.
Lanjut. Kenapa berasap itu? Udah semua ya? Kayaknya udah semua dah. Di atas apa ini? Apa nih? That's new. Epilogue.
An epilogue would be fun, wouldn't it, Stanley? Yes, it would go at the end of the, well, we'll figure that out later.
Apa sih epilog gitu doang anjing? Gitu doang. Astaga. Apa sih? Tinggal kesini nih, sini belum nih. Gak bisa lari pula nih game anjir. Jalan aja kagak lari. Mostly infinite hole anjir. Direvisi sama dia. Settings World Champion. Apa nih Settings World Champion? Apaan dah? Settings World Champion apaan? Emang ada di sini? Nggak ada Indo ya? Iyalah, masa ada sih? Kapan Indo dianggap? Jangan deh. Kalau ke video, cek. Einstellungen. Weltmeister. Anjay. Coba kemana? The jump circle. Itu masih bahasa Inggris. Tadi kesini belum kesini. The Stanley Parable berhigung saima anjir.
A common complaint of the Stanley Parable was that it was confusing and paradoxical.
Oh, tetap pakai bahasa Inggris ya? Gue kira bisa pakai bahasa Jerman. Ya udah kalau gitu nggak usah lah.
That it engendered a chaotic sense of reckless despair in those who played it.
Malah ngerti gue.
I am happy to say that after much consideration,
Apa
I
nih?
engineered a clever solution to this fundamental problem with the game. It's the Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket. You see, Stanley, anytime you're holding the bucket, a sense of calm and ease will fill your mind and your heart.
Apa nih ember, coy?
As long as you hold on to the bucket, the many disorienting contradictions of the Stanley Parable will feel perfectly normal and perhaps even comforting. You may even come to long for the gentle embrace of jarring cognitive dissonance while the bucket is in your arms. And to be honest, it's a much more convenient solution for me than actually redesigning the game to be less uncomfortable. Can you imagine what a pain in the ass that would be? Yes, the bucket is the perfect solution. Come on, give it a try.
Mana? Oh, bisa diambil kah? Nih, kenapa?
Can you feel it? The glow of comfort, even in the face of crushing despair, must already be sweeping through your body. And in fact, can I say that I do believe the bucket lends you an air of charisma as well?
Bacot.
I think that just holding it has made you the slightest bit more attractive.
Bodoh amat katanya, kalau kita megang bucket kelihatan kayak atraktif.
All this and more await you in the Stanley Parable 2.
Oke. Ini ember gue bawa-bawa terus nih.
Does anyone give out awards for most enjoyable bucket in a video game? That really should be an award if it isn't already.
Apa sih? Exit dah, exit. Itu apaan anjir?
All right, have you seen everything you wanted to? Ready to move on now?
Oke. Wih, apaan itu anjir? Anjay, bikin pusing liat ya. No screenshot.
So, Stanley, what do you think? Do you like all of the new features? Yes, I know it's not exactly clear yet how exactly these features will come together as one single coherent video game, but I can feel it in my soul. It's going to work. There's definitely a good game in there somewhere. Say, let's do an experiment. I'll arrange these new features together and we'll see whether or not it coheres into a meaningful gameplay experience.
Apaan nih?
Okay, are you ready? Here it is. I give you the Stanley Parable 2.
Waduh, apa tuh?
Well, I mean, there's potential here, right? It's sort of... Okay, never mind. Hold on, let me do a different arrangement.
Lah?
Okay, yes.
Nggak
This
jelas.
is much better. I feel good about this. Here we go. Version 2.
Lah, ada suara kentut anjir.
Who am I kidding, Stanley? This isn't a coherent video game at all. It's a lot of gags. And I do very much enjoy creating gags, but they don't add up to anything.
Okay.
I wanted more than anything to create a sequel that would capture all the magic of the first game. I wanted fans to love it. No matter how good these gags are, they won't stand on their own. They would need the structure and the gameplay of the original. Wait, maybe that's it. I can take the original Stanley Parable and simply, well, insert a few of my new features into it. Tastefully, of course. With respect. With care for the vision and integrity of the original game. Would it possibly work? I suppose it could. But it would need a really, really tremendous title screen. A title screen that says with bold and uncompromising conviction, this is the Stanley Parable 2. Let me see if I can whip something up. All right, perfect. Go ahead. Take a look.
Mana? Anjay, the Stanley Parable 2. Asik. Anjay, keren. Anjing. Ini beneran langsung main ini Stanley Parable 2 apa gimana?
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Lah, sama aja.
Stanley worked for a company
bedanya ditambahin balon
where he was
anjing.
employee number 427.
Begitu dong tambahin balon anjir.
427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427.
Sama aja cuma ditambahin balon apa gimana dah?
Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job.
Apa sih anjir?
Was happy.
Stanley was happy. Udah.
And then one day, something very peculiar happened.
Anjay, the
Something that
Stanley
would
Parable.
forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed
Itu
up
ada
to give him
balonnya, anjing.
instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong.
Okay.
Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Oke, mulai. Ini Stanley Parable 2 kah? Anjing! Apaan itu, bro? Media share ya? Assalamualaikum. Apa tuh tadi? Gak keliat gua aja, kaget gua, bangke. Gua kira apaan? Bentar. Siapa ini yang ngasih nih? Shailendra. Assalamualaikum. Waduh. Waalaikumsalam. Apaan itu tadi, bro? Ulang. Buset, itu apaan anjir? What? Itu apaan anjir? Terima kasih ya. Apaan itu, gila. Lagi. Anjay.
1, 2, 3. Abang tukang bakso milik kas.
Apa sih anjir? Skibi di toilet gak tahu. Makasih lah ya. Apa itu sangat random. Lanjut. Oke. Balonnya ada banyak ya?
All of his co-workers were gone. Oh, please. Are you really just doing this for the achievement? Click a door 5 times. Is that all that you think an achievement is worth? No.
Ah, elah, apa lagi
You
nih?
can't just give these merits away for such little effort. A measly 5 clicks. Now suppose you were
Video yang ditemukan Dank. Anjing, apaan tuh? Buset! Monster anjing. Monster gambling anjir.
I have to say, I'm still not feeling the satisfaction of witnessing true effort for a noble cause.
Apalagi
Perhaps
nih?
50 clicks will do it.
50 clicks,
Almost
gue disuruh
certainly
klik
50
50 kali nih.
clicks.
Tuh agak 4 jumpa lalu, 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 tuh agak 4 jumpa lalu. Udah 50.
No, I'm still not feeling it. I want this achievement to have meant something. It has to be a true reward for valiant effort. I want to see some hustle, Stanley. I want to see commitment, a willingness to go all the way, no matter what the cost. Why don't you go put 20 clicks into door
20
number
clicks.
417?
417, di mana tuh 417? Ntar kita cek dulu sini dulu. Oke, sini kosong. Apa tuh? Who farted? Siapa yang kentut anjing di gelasnya tulisannya gitu. Coba kita cek lagi. Oh, masih dipencet itu. Berarti bisa. Empat 17 di mana? Apa tuh? 457, 456. Kok ini ada gininya? Dulu nggak ada itu. Anjing! Kaget lo bro, Shalendra. Main game apa? Ya Allah, kaget gua, jantungan anjir. Jangan gitu ya, aduh, kaget banget ya Allah. Hati gua mungil, Shalendra, jangan gitu. Ini game nggak tahu, game gak jelas lah pokoknya. Kita ngikutin aja lah, disuruh ngapain. Ini ada ember, bro.
Stanley picked up the bucket.
Dapat ember. Halo ember. Temenin gue ya ember ya. 425, 417 di mana 417? Senang kamu Febrian melihat saya begitu ya. 417. Nah ini nih. 20 kali klik ya. Tua gapat manam jumpa nalu. Tua gapat manam jumpa nalu. Mana?
Okay, great. Now, go touch the bucket on door 437 a few times.
Go touch the bucket. 437. Di mana 437? Di mana? Oh ini.
Yes, now we're getting somewhere. How about door 415? Give it some
Bucket
bucket love.
415. Di mana 415 tadi ya? Di depan ya?
Now back to door number 437.
Buset, disuruh bolak-balik gua buat dapetin achievement doang. Mana 437?
You know, I think the copy machine needs some attention.
Ala
Why don't you
bacot.
rub the bucket on it? All right, back to room 417.
Astaga.
I'm really feeling it now. I think we're getting somewhere.
Ya jelas banget. Gak jelas banget. Kayaknya nggak enak kalau pakai ini. Nah, kalau pakai stick tuh agak susah gitu ya. 417. Nih.
Okay, now bring the bucket on top of employee 419's desk.
419 desk. Mana 419 tuh di mana? 419. 420 di sini. Oh ini. Disuruh naro apa gimana? Cara naro ini gimana? Katanya di sini nih 419 desk. Hah? Nggak jelas. Mencet apa anjir? Hah? Apa sih? Nggak jelas. Bentar. Mana sih 419? Suruh ngapain tadi? Ditaruh di atas meja gimana caranya anjir?
Yes, this is great.
Oh,
now
dah.
the bucket knows exactly what it's like to be employee 419. Now, let's introduce it to door 416.
Door 416. 416 mana 416? Mana 416? Di mana? Nggak ada. Oh, ini.
We've almost got it. Now make the bucket and the copy machine touch again.
Astaga, nggak jelas banget. Bolak-balik disuruh gua.
Finish it off, Stanley. 5 touches of the bucket on door 430. Yes! We did it! Wow!
Nggak jelas.
You know, not all buckets will get this kind of experience.
Apa
They will
sih,
all know what it's like to
anjing?
slam repeatedly
Gitu
against
doang.
every door in one section of an office building. Or what it's like to be employee 419. Buckets may dream of an experience like this, but few can say they've truly lived it. You've given a bucket hope today. Stanley, I'm very proud of you.
Bodoh amat. Udah gitu doang. Astaga. Ada something happen lagi. Empat B3.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be.
Apalagi nih coba.
Truly, being here with the bucket was a grand adventure. Stanley reflected on all they'd been through together. First, walking through the door on the right, then walking to the lounge, then arriving at the lounge. What a thrilling journey the bucket had inspired.
Apa sih?
Perhaps this was where, but finally, the bucket was done being in the lounge, and they took the first open door on their left to get back to business.
Get back to the business. Coba kali ya.
And so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door.
Sini belum nih, gue belum pernah kesini. Kemana nih? Baru nih.
Oh, good Stanley. I'm glad you found your way here. I knew you'd find
Apaan
this
tuh
place
anjir?
eventually.
We care about you, Stanley. Apaan ini?
You see, your friends and I are concerned for you, Stanley. We've come together here because we care about you very much. It's this bucket you're carrying around everywhere. The bucket isn't even from the original Stanley Parable. It's just sequel content. We're the ones that matter, Stanley. Classic characters from the first game, like the Adventure Line and the Broom Closet. Because that's what fans want from a sequel. They want more of their favorite
ini
jokes,
apaan?
not
Ini
this
pada bayi.
bucket that they've never seen before. Yes, I know I'm the one who gave you the bucket, but you're spending too much time with it. Don't you want another story involving the Adventure Line? We could make the Adventure Line go somewhere new. Yes, yes, that's what the fans want. Let's do it.
Apaan tuh? Adventure Line.
Whee! Look at that wacky line. Who knows where it'll
Apa
go
sih,
off to
wih?
next? Oh, and it played some silly music as well.
Lah, nggak jelas.
Now this is what the Stanley Parable is all about. Don't you remember all those great jokes from the
Loh,
original
apaan
dialogue?
lagi nih?
Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Yes, it's as classic now as it was back then. Let's do it for the fans, Stanley. Let's give them more content exactly like this. But if we want to do that, you're going to have to give something up.
Apa?
Don't you get it, Stanley? We need to get rid of the bucket.
Yeah.
That's why I'm very proud to introduce a brand new character.
Suruh
This
keluarin
is the
bakatnya.
Bucket Destroyer.
Wah, bucket destroyer.
I think it'll make a wonderful new addition to the rich lore of the Stanley Parable. True,
No.
it also was not in the original game, but it's such a well-fleshed-out character with so much personality that to me it already feels as though it's been part of the cast all along. Don't you agree? Can you guess what the Bucket Destroyer does? Surely you don't need me to spell it out for you. Go ahead now, Stanley. Say goodbye to the bucket.
No,
and then pop it into the
bucket.
machine when you're ready.
No, Ember. Ember telah menemaniku sepanjang
Now listen to
jalan.
me. It's crucial that you give it the bucket. I don't know what the Bucket Destroyer will do if it can't destroy your bucket. Destroying buckets is all it knows. That is its singular
Ya, nggak bisa
personality trait.
kemana-mana.
Sure, I can hear you saying, how does a character with only one personality trait deserve to join the pantheon of beloved Stanley Parable characters? Well, you see, if you were to really explore the Bucket Destroyer, you would see that its desire to crush buckets is so densely loaded with complexity and nuance that it's really like 10 personality traits. What other object in this game can you even say that about? The broom closet? Certainly not. I wonder what sort of Bucket Destroyer merchandise the fans will be clamoring for after this. Okay, the Bucket Destroyer is getting very upset now. You'll have to hurry and feed it. We can't get back to the classic Stanley Parable characters like the Adventure Line or the Bucket Destroyer until you crush that damn bucket. Quickly now, the fans are waiting. Do it, the fans, Stanley. Give the fans what they want. Hurry and...
Wah, meledak. Apaan ini anjir kok? Buset, itu apaan anjir? Penghancur ember.
The Bucket Destroyer. My prized creation. You had so much potential. We were going to do such marvelous things with you, tell such spellbinding stories about you. All of it squandered now. Goodbye, new friend. For the moment in time that you were here, you were magnificent.
Apa sih? Apa sih? Apa sih? Apa sih? Apa sih? Apa sih? Ya Allah, apa sih? Apaan sih ini? Lah, udah. Itu endingnya lah. Ending bucket.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Awaiting input. Okay.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
On his right.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Wow, yes, this room. What a beautiful room. What a gorgeous, gorgeous room. Thank goodness Stanley had taken this detour on his way to the meeting room. Life without having experienced this room. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Coba kali ya. Coba sini.
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
Oh, nggak bisa.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling
Halo,
a
Bang.
wave
Halo,
of
apa?
disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he... Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around, and coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Game apa bang? Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe kayak yang di judul. Tapi nggak tahu nih, game nggak jelas sih sebenarnya. Wih.
You found one of them. One of the miniature Stanley figurines. Remember, no reward for collecting all of these. Only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines.
Okay. Because the boss knows that what the boss says, guys. If the boss is Salbert loses, then that's what the boss choose. Okay. Loh? Oh, ini ruangan baru kah? Oh, ruangan baru nih, ada gambar apa tuh? Panda. Wah, ruangan baru nih. Kok nyala-nyala gitu? Lah, kagak keluar-keluar ini. Ah, udah. Lah, baliknya ke sini-sini lagi. Lah, liftnya error kah? Gak jelas. Gak jelas, gue kira nih lift kemana ya, astaga. Gak jelas banget sih.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway. Another miniature Stanley figurine. This, there really must be a snappier name for these things. What about mini stands? Stanley figs? What about Stanlerines? Yes, I think I like that. Another Stanlerine under your belt.
Apa lagi ini? Oke. Kita jalanin dulu kayak biasa. Apakah ada yang baru?
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Kita tuh 427. Oh iya, kosong.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
Apa nih?
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Gelap amat ya?
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place.
And then menang lagi kah? Kan udah menang 2 kali gue. Endingnya tuh nggak dapat lagi yang lainnya.
And a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine. Unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Oke. Menang kah? Itu true endingnya kayak gitu.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
In the meeting room.
Stanley lifted the bucket into his arms, and a wave of comfort rushed over him. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
There will be a reward for finding them all. Stairs, something to do with stairs, somewhere both red and blue. Lots of boxes, looks like. Trust the completionist instinct. Apa? Nggak ada apa-apa.
Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom closet. It wants the bucket. You can feel that, can't you? The aura of jealousy. It's as clear as day. This broom closet believes it deserves the bucket. I can really feel it now. It's a bucket. It belongs in a broom closet. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. Okay, I'm going back to the name of these little Stanley figurines, and now I'm torn between Stanlerines and Figlies. What do you think, Stanley? What name better encapsulates the intrinsic sense of happiness
Gak
that you get
jelas,
from seeing
gak
a small number in
jelas.
the corner of your screen go up by 1? Let me sit on it. I'm sure it will come to me. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. He looked down at the bucket in his arms. Am I crazy? He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a source of guidance and wisdom for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort. And that's when Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket. Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong. Surely no good would come from this. Who knows what sorts of bizarre hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychologically grounding presence of his bucket. And indeed, now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd. And now he felt himself floating off the ground. Oh, gracious, he exclaimed. Without my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him. Stanley! Stanley, it's me, the bucket. Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing by one bucket after the next. None of them were his. None of them were his special bucket. Come to me, Stanley. Find me. He had to find the bucket. He had to return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along. It was incredibly painful. Stanley doubled over in agony and blacked out.
Loh, itu apa tadi? Gede banget bakatnya.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
Lah, gak jelas. Balik lagi.
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the problem was. This man had no bucket. Of course he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is predetermined and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him. Perhaps he didn't realize he'd forgotten his bucket at home in the first place. How cruel the world can be, Mariella thought, and she hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work, for which her bucket would provide absolute guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck yes, she thought to herself, my life kicks ass. And she backflipped all the way to work.
Okay.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. The confusion and the chaos all seemed to melt away as Stanley embraced the bucket.
Okay.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the
Apalagi yang
door
belum
of his
dicoba ya?
lift.
Yang belum dicoba apalagi sih?
Stanley just stood there doing nothing at all. He seems to think I have nothing better to do with my time than to sit around and describe every fascinating little detail of his inability to do anything. This is why Stanley and I are on such good terms.
Biar aja, tungguin aja.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift. Good.
Said the bucket.
Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked. No, stop. Look there on the wall. You see, there's a sign right there. It says, "No buckets past this point." Stanley, how could you think it was okay to bring the bucket here? Unless, what if the problem is that you actually don't know what is a bucket and what isn't a bucket? I suppose that would explain a lot about your behavior up to this point. Which, if that's true, well, my goodness, I think we have to do something about it. This misunderstanding could have dire consequences on the entire rest of the game if not addressed quickly and properly. So much of the impact of the story is dependent on your understanding of what is and isn't a bucket. Please, step in here for a moment.
Terus? Is this a bucket?
Now,
Apaan ini anjing?
I'm going to run you through some test scenarios and you'll tell me whether or not the thing I'm showing you is a bucket. Simple enough, right? This should tell us everything we'll ever need to know about what is or is not a bucket. Okay, let's begin.
Okay.
Item 1.
Is this a
a
bucket?
bucket?
No.
Correct. It is a hologram of a bucket, not an actual bucket.
Masa? Emang bener? Lah,
Item 2. Is this a bucket? Correct. It is a 3D printed recreation of a bucket, not an actual bucket.
ini apapun yang gue beli bener ya?
Item 3. Is this a bucket? Correct. This is a bucket.
Lah.
Item 4. Is this a bucket?
Yes.
Are you hallucinating? This is a tractor.
This
It's
is
an
a
enormous
tractor.
machine that tills the earth. I thought this was a
Tills the
gimmick.
earth.
How on earth did you manage to screw it up? Absolutely incredible. Let's just move on to the next one.
Gak jelas anjing.
Is this a bucket?
Yes.
Correct.
Lah,
This is a bucket.
mana bucketnya anjing? Gak jelas banget dong.
Item 6. Is this a bucket? Trick question. Both. Gotcha.
Lah, gak jelas. Both.
Item... Wait, hold on. I can't find the next one. Let me see. It should be around here somewhere. Okay, you and I both know there isn't anything here. And I don't appreciate the implication that nothing is a bucket when we both clearly know that a bucket is something, and therefore nothing could possibly be something. Unless, in your twisted mind, have you somehow convinced yourself that a bucket is nothing?
The bucket
Answer
is
me
nothing.
straight, Stanley. Do you believe that nothing is a bucket?
Yes.
You know what? I'm too confused to even sort it out. I've lost all sense of perspective. What is a bucket? What isn't a bucket? Mere moments ago I could answer these questions with confidence, and yet now I'm somewhat adrift. Do any of us know what a bucket is? Am I a bucket?
Yes.
Stanley, I can't keep doing
I
this.
can't keep doing
I'm losing
this.
myself, and myself was all I ever had to begin with. I'm afraid the bucket is threatening to tear our relationship apart. I
Okay.
can't have that. I'm sorry. But I'm going to erase all buckets from the game entirely.
No.
Okay, here we go. What happened? Is everything gone? Why did everything disappear? Wait, was everything a bucket?
Yes.
Every single thing in the game was a bucket.
Yes.
Oh my God, I had no idea. How could... Except me. I'm not a bucket after all. And you, Stanley, you're still here. You're not a bucket either. Oh, this is wonderful news. We're not buckets. Yes, I actually feel much more at ease right now. It's delightful to get some clarity on that issue, but it doesn't change the fact that we haven't got a game. So, tell you what, I'll reset everything and we'll put back all of the buckets, okay?
Okay.
And we'll know that it's all a bucket. But if you run into anyone else, maybe don't mention that. Who knows what that information might do to a person? All right, here we go.
Okay. Oke, nggak ada perubahan.
A soft wind blew outside and perhaps rain started, and if it did, it stopped shortly after. Stanley hoped that he would one day see weather. Warmth spread through Stanley's arms. With the bucket in his arms again, he was home. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Good,
Said the bucket.
now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked. But Stanley feared that any path he walked might lead to the separation of himself and the bucket, his dearest friend. So he threw himself to his death, that they might die in one another's arms. How deeply touching.
What the fuck? Ah, udahlah. Banyak banget ini endingnya, anjir. Gak kelar-kelar ini mah. Resume the game, quit the menu. Itu desktop. Udahlah, anjir, banyak banget. Banyak banget endingnya, anjir. Kayak nggak terkira. Gila. Ya udahlah. Thank you semuanya yang sudah menonton ya. I'll see you guys on the next stream. Bye-bye.